We will begin our service in just a moment. Could you please take this opportunity to ensure that your mobile phones are shut off? Dear family and friends, in reverence spirit we gather in this holy place, sanctified by so many tears, to say farewell and shalom to our beloved Rachel Chaya bat Melech v'Sarah, Imi umori, my mother and teacher, who yesterday morning died peacefully at the age of 88, while in the embrace of her devoted husband, our father Leonard, and surrounded by her loving children and grandchildren. Though at this hour her family is bowed in grief, our hearts are filled with gratitude to God for the orach yamim, the length of days afforded to Mom. How blessed she was, bechol davar, in so many ways, and how fortunate we are to be her children, her mishpacha, her friend. Together and unreservedly, we celebrate these gifts and say this was a good life, a chayim tovim. And considering her 11 grandchildren, both those here today and those watching from afar, and her 10 great-grandchildren, we can add this: hers was an immensely productive and meaningful life. For each memory we have made, for every kindness that we have been extended, for all the love that we shared, we are duly blessed and truly grateful. It is in this harmonious spirit that this family and these many friends begin our service of tribute and turn to our sacred scriptures that speak of God's nearness to us both in joy as in times of sorrow. From Psalm 16. Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid, ki mimini ba'alemot, lachein samach libi v'yagel kevoedi, af besari yishkon lavetach. Ki lo tazov nafshi lishol, lo titein chasidecha lirot shachat. Todieni orach chayim sovas machot et panecha, nimot b'minecha netzach. Its meaning, I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side, I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. I am secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. Rather, you show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy, and enduring happiness will yet be your gift. Amen.
To read from the book of Kohelet, from the book of Ecclesiastes, we invite Max Robuck.
For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and time to speak.
And it is now time to speak. And on behalf of the grandchildren, we invite Rhoda's granddaughter, Sharon Barskell.
I struggled long and hard to come up with the perfect opening to describe my truly unique relationship with my beloved Bubby. But then I realized that my Bubby and I, despite being more than 50 years apart in age, shared 4 very special best friends: Rose, Sophia, Blanche, and Dorothy. My Bubby and I loved the Golden Girls. We developed our mutual love for these 4 ladies at our regular weekend sleepovers, where she would always tuck me in, sing me Shema, and recite her own good night poem. Good night, sleep tight, wake up bright, in the morning light, to do what's right with all your might, dynamite. But I was not the only grandchild to enjoy sleepovers at Bubby and Grandpa's house. Bubby was the most loving grandmother to 11 grandchildren, 6 in-law grandkids, and 10 great-grandchildren. We each had such different connections and memories of her, but each one so telling of the kind of woman she was to us. Even though David and Sarah couldn't be here from Australia, he recalled how her offbeat, colorful sense of humor always set her apart. She had a way of delivering her lines that could make you smile ear to ear, though if you read a transcript, you certainly wouldn't get it. Even if the joke came at your expense, it still made you laugh. Ben remembered her humor as well, thinking of her sarcasm and great timing and being able to hit a joke out of the park. Bubby had a love of laughter and also of music, dance, and art. Aaron, also in Australia today, so fondly remembered his last trip to Cleveland when he visited Bubby and Grandpa and shared with her his newfound love of tap dancing, to which she responded with delight. Forever young at heart, and while putting him and my mother in stitches, she demonstrated and taught him 2 new tap combinations that are now his go-to steps. Aaron was lucky to have been able to make a career out of his shared love of dancing with Bubby, but all I could muster was a little duet which Bubby and I choreographed to Ball in the Jack. We all love what we refer to as Bubby Rabba's shtetl melodies of our favorite Passover Seder songs. Her sweet great-granddaughter Daphna can't stop asking to sing and hear her Shnei Luchas Abris, or her Kilo Noe, Kilo Yoe, which we just sang at our Seder tables in Florida. Those melodies are so fun and remind us of her and her love of tradition and family togetherness. But as much as she loved her Judaism, she had an equal love for Christmas carols, which inspired a lifelong love of Christmas music in Michael as well. As a matter of fact, Bubby insisted that she heard Christmas carols playing on a nonstop loop through her hearing aids throughout this past year. I remember going with Bubby and Grandpa to several bead and gem shows where we would listen to Nat King Cole and Harry Belafonte on the car ride there, and then arrive to a center filled with sparkly jewelry. Sometimes we just went to look, while other times I walked up and down the aisles with Bubby, looking at all the pieces and watching her try things on. And let's face it, trying on a few things myself. And thus began my love of jewelry and of shopping, and where I learned from the original black belt level shopper that if your arms didn't hurt you at the end of a shopping day, you hadn't been very successful. Jessica, Scott, and Leah were reminded of fun times ice skating, going to SeaWorld, and eating sweets with Bubby. Bubby loved all her grandchildren so much, and Leah loved how Bubby always wanted to share information about the rest of the family with her. When she and Leah would speak, Bubby wanted to know all about her and also wanted to be sure that she knew about the rest of the family so that all of us were always connected to one another. Shoshi had such a special bond with Bubby too. She remarked how Bubby was always so happy and excited to hear her voice when she called. She wanted to hear every detail about her travels, her life, and her work. My brother Yoni said that of all the people in his life, Bubby loved him unconditionally. She welcomed him into the house with a kiss on the cheek, and there's my Yoni. She found so much naches in her grandchildren's happiness. Bubby would call me regularly on Wednesday nights, one of her favorite nights, when Grandpa would go play cards. And ESPN or his favorite game would not be on TV. And she would sit quietly, read her favorite book, and call me to check in after my 3 kids had gone to sleep. She wanted to know everything, each and every detail about what I was doing, what I had learned in school that week, and what I had cooked for Shabbat. She was always impressed and yet frustrated that I would cook things that required too much patchki, as she would say, as opposed to just doing things simply. Bubby had an extra special relationship with the next generation, the great-grandchildren. I remember that for each of my pregnancies, she had her own calendar and had marked off how many weeks pregnant I would be on any specific date, and she'd call and ask how I was doing during that week. In this last year, when Bubby and Grandpa moved to Wiggins, my kids would run through the halls of the building when we visited and find her not-so-secret stash of chocolate, and a little surprise at the bottom of the bowl of Milky Ways where she had also left her dentures. My big kids, Daphna and Liav, hopped onto the seat of her walker, where she would proudly wheel and dance them through the halls, loving their company and showing them off to all the residents. Every time we return to Orlando, Liav is quick to ask, when can we go back to Wiggins? For visiting and, of course, for chocolate. We will all miss her love, her smile, her kindness and enthusiasm, her chocolate, her interest and investment in our well-being, her wisdom, her cooking, and her witty sense of humor. She was my advisor, my counselor, my biggest fan and supporter, and my friend. She left me with a few great Bubbyisms. Be a lady. You burn it, you scrape it, and you eat it. Put an iron on their heads to keep them from growing up too fast. They'll eat when they're hungry. and you just have to live long enough to see it happen. I miss Bubby and her Bubbyisms so much already, but I know that the name she has made for herself will be her legacy.
And now it is a time to sing. And so we invite her daughter, Laurel Barr, to sing the 23rd Psalm.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לו אחסר, מנודה שירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני, נפשי שובב ינחני, ומגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך פגי צל מוות, לא ירא רע כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
The author of Sefer Mishlei, the book of Proverbs, pays tribute to the Jewish woman in his final chapter, glorifying the Eshet Chayil, the woman of valor. He praises the Jewish woman, finding a virtue for her suggested by each letter of the alphabet. Eshet Chayil mi imtza v'rachok mipninim michra. What a precious find is an Eshet Chayil, he declares. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Oz v'hadar levusha. She is clothed with strength and splendor. Piha patcha v'chochma v'torat chesed al leshona. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. And the author sums up his sentiments in the most moving tribute to the Jewish woman found in a single verse. Kamu vaneha vayashruha Ba'ala vayahalalah. Her children rise up and they call her blessed. Her husband praises her. No more eloquent words, no better summary of the life of Rhoda Robuck, of Rachel Chaya Bat Melech Vesara, can be given than to say that her family consider themselves blessed because she was their mother, their wife, their sister, aunt, grandmother, and great-grandmother. And in fact, all of us here today and all those who knew her were blessed to have her in our lives. And we know too and are grateful for the fact that her life was blessed as well. It comes as no challenge to find words of praise to share about her, and although we do so with heavy hearts today, we do it with a sense of comfort, knowing that she is finally at peace. The blessings of her life began on March 24th, 1928, a date she remembered well even to the end, when she was born here in Cleveland to Max and Sarah Chesler, followed a few years later by her younger brother Tommy, Zichrono Livracha, whose wife Harriet is here today, along with members of their family. Although they lived like the poor people which they were, sleeping as babies in dresser drawers instead of a crib which the family couldn't afford, her life in her early years was filled with a blessing that so many of us long for, the blessing of being at home surrounded by her family living in the homes around hers. She often spoke about how meaningful it was to her that her own bubby was nearby, and she idealized that upbringing and often regretted that families today don't enjoy that opportunity anymore. Surrounded by her family, she lived a very happy childhood, despite the challenging times the world was going through. She loved to ride the streetcar, going to buy salami for dinner with the 10 cents her mother had given her. When she wasn't busy with Tommy or playing outside with the kids on the street as parents watched from their porches, she could be found as part of a very close group of friends, whether at Patrick Henry, Miles Standish, or Glenville High School, where she graduated at the top of her class, all the while chanting, "Tar, blood, whack, thud." She adored her brother, and truly felt his loss when he passed a few years ago, and both loved and respected her parents, who made her into the person she was in so many ways. They raised their children in a traditional Jewish family, and Rhoda went to shul with her father every Shabbos, cementing the fact that Shabbat would forever be a sacred part of her life. And it was also from her parents that she learned that a person doesn't really need more than 3 squares of toilet paper at a time. Even when Laurel brought them a huge pack, she still found her mother never counting beyond 3. Sadly, she also learned that not every moment is filled with happiness, that grieving is a part of life as well, a lesson she was taught too early when her father died at such a young age. It was a loss that always stuck with her, always caused her heartache and pain, both for the father she missed, but also because it was the real world showing her that families don't always stay together forever. Of course, the blessing of family returned to her life when a young man named Leonard returned home from his time serving in the army. One day, a woman from the family that lived downstairs from him offered to introduce him to a man she worked with. So he went down to the OPA in 1946 and saw Rhoda there wearing a striped dress. And as soon as he saw her, he said, "I'm going to marry her." It was love at first sight. At least it was from his side. You see, he was a kinsman cowboy from the other side of town. And to make matters worse, she was dating someone else at the time. But thank God, Grandpa was persistent and waited until his time came. And that night when he was sitting in his car outside her home at 12:30 in the morning, while her boyfriend ended their relationship and, as he put it, abdicated his claim to her, in he swooped to first build a relationship before they finally got together and went on their first date to Chin's Pagoda on Euclid to see Jack Sue of television fame. And after a year of dating, they got engaged and were married on August 22nd, 1948, on a 102-degree day at Taylor Road Synagogue. And as he put it, she was a gal who could talk, knew the language, and was so different and special. She had a great sense of humor and was just so smart. And he loved her just as strongly through every day of their marriage. As newlyweds, they lived first on Hinsdale Road in South Euclid, where their first 2 children, Max and Alan, were born. It was only after moving into a brand new house on Baintree in October of '55 that Laurel and eventually Gary joined the party. She was a happy mother, always extremely proud of her children, and together with Leonard raising them into the incredible people that they are today, and giving them each the privilege, maybe not the choice, but the privilege, to learn 2 instruments. But what might have made her the most content living on Baintree with her 4 children and her own mother in the home was that it reminded her of her own childhood, of being surrounded by family. Although Bubby stayed at home during the early years of the kids' lives, she did make her way back to school, earning a bachelor's at Cleveland State before starting her master's at John Carroll. It led her to become a teacher at Wiley Middle School, where she was groundbreaking in her work with a course called Fusion English, which forged a new way to teach English and social studies together. She was loyal to all her students, many of whom have come forward in the past couple of days saying that she always saw the potential in them and always went the extra mile to help them learn and giving them a chance to grow into the person she knew they could be. She was fair and showed no favoritism in her classroom, not even when Gary became her student, a point she proved one day when she threw him out of class. Among the other teachers in the school, however, her favorite was clear. That would be Alan, who was the music teacher, though admittedly it did cause some confusion for the students that Mr. Robuck and Mrs. Robuck were not actually married to each other. But so strong was her passion for teaching that even when she retired, she became a dependable and much-loved substitute teacher at Agnon Hebrew Day School. While teaching was, of course, a passion, she was a woman of many loves, interests, and abilities. As she went on in life, her passion for her own Jewish education became exceedingly clear as she pursued an adult bat mitzvah, which she did not in the context of a class but on her own, chanting an entire haftarah thanks to the tutelage of Rabbi Shtul, Zichrono Livracha. Her love for the color red was legendary, inspiring at least my tie this morning. And when she managed to buy something red from her favorite mall, Beechwood Mall, which she never lived too far from, which was not an accident, she always had a huge smile on her face. Of course, as I learned, the best indication she would give as to whether or not it would be a good shopping day was if she was able to get a parking spot close to the entrance. That was always a good sign. She took up jazzercise, had her Yiddish group, which was a language and a culture that was so important to her, and tried really hard to learn how to swim, though it never quite stuck. She started to needlepoint and eventually began making tallis bags for members of the family. She was even the inventor of the birthday morning scavenger hunt, a tradition which continues in our home today. It turns out as well that many years ago she actually even liked sports, which was surprising considering the public disdain she once verbalized for a certain Indians pitcher. And when that pitcher eventually left the Indians and joined the Yankees, she and I celebrated together. And of course, she loved to eat her favorite foods. Whether it was lachshen kugel that she put in a soup, gefilte fish from a jar, the challah that she baked with garlic sprinkles on top, or chocolate, of course. She loved her sweets, even at the end, when you could find her in her robe without her teeth in, gumming some caramel corn. Her diabetes had no chance of stopping her. And she made it clear that if the time came when she couldn't eat anymore, she wanted someone to grind up a corned beef sandwich, potato chips, and orange pop, and feed it to her through a feeding tube. And all through it, she craved for her family to be together. She loved her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. She went to see them whenever she could, and they displayed love in return, as Max called every Sunday, no matter where in the world he was. She expanded her own family by bringing in others when they married into the Robuck clan. She and Grandpa shared their house with Max, Stacy, and Leah when she was a young girl, even having their house be the site of Max and Stacy's engagement. She taught Jocelyn how to cook and taught Robin how to keep kosher. And she made sure Hanan knew that once you joined this family, there was no going back. When she told him that she had thrown away the receipt from his marriage to Laurel and that there were no returns. And as time went by, she welcomed husbands and wives to her beloved grandchildren, Todd, Justin, Lauren, Liz, Sarah, and me. It didn't matter how long you'd known her. She was immediately Bubby and stayed that way. I remember one time after the last of my own grandparents had passed away that I called her something else, either Rhoda or Mrs. Robuck, and she gave me a look that said, "What kind of gestunkene thing are you doing?" I'm your Bubby too, and she most definitely was. She was everyone's Bubby, or Bubby Rabba, their great-grandmother. And she even was so for Ori and Dee, and for her other caregivers, who gave her such incredible devotion and kindness at the end of her life. She made us all her family because that was what she wanted. She traveled and took trips not so much to see the world as to see people whom she knew and loved. She was endlessly proud of being from Cleveland, proud to have lived her entire life in this city. And even when the family took some road trips in their precious Winnebago, Cleveland was always home. And in this home she never felt old. Even when her body started to wear down and she couldn't do the things that she used to, she was always a young soul. To her dying day, she always wanted to be okay, always wanted to live. And she did. For 88 blessed years, she barely ever sat down. There is truly nothing else to do other than to praise her for her passion for her family and her yearning for life. She blessed us by making us a part of her family. To Grandpa and Harriet, her children Max, Karen, Debbie, Eric, and their families. To Uncle Max and Aunt Stacy, Leah, Todd, Andrew, Brooke, Jessica and Justin, Allison and Olivia, Scott and Lauren and Jackson and Mason. To Uncle Alan and Aunt Robin, Mike and Liz, Ben and Yoni. To my mother-in-law Laurel, whose devotion and dedication to the care of her parents has been unending and was endlessly, if not always verbally, appreciated by her mother. And Hanan, to Sharon, and Yoni, and Daphna, Liav, Hadar, and me. To Uncle Gary and Aunt Jocelyn, David, Sarah, Shoshi, Aaron, and baby Eliana. We offer both our condolences and also our thanks for sharing Bubby with us and letting her life be ours. Adonai Natan, v'Adonai Lakach. Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Following our completion of the ceremony here, the burial, the burial will be taking place at Mount Olive Cemetery on Aurora Road. And people are invited to come as the family sits Shiva at Laurel and Hanan's house at 5152 Crofton Avenue, today until 6 p.m., on Sunday from 1 to 8 in the afternoon and evening, and Monday through Wednesday from 2 to 4 in the afternoon and 7 to 9. There will be minyanim at 7:30 p.m. on Sunday through Wednesday. The family has asked that if you would like to make a donation in Bubby's memory, that you do so either to the Yiddish Book Center in Amherst, Massachusetts, or to the tzedakah of your choice. I'll ask you all now to please rise as Alan comes up to recite the El Malei Rachamim.
רחמים, שוכן במרומים, אמצא מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה. במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת רחל בת שרה ומלך שהלכה לעולמה. בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה, אנא בעל הרחמים. אסיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום, ותנוח בשלום, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of Rachel Chaya, Bat Melech Vesara, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And we say together, Amen. To serve as pallbearers, we invite Hanan, Leah, Todd, Shoshi, Ben, Mike, Yoni, and Sharon.